So many women learn that to be empowered means to be in control of your fertility. Going off the pill for me was a huge moment of awakening, of listening to the undomesticated woman, the cycle breaker, the kitchen witch who was alive and well within me, but just waiting to be recognized, waiting for me to give her a voice.
I stopped my period of mourning and hibernation and moved into taking control of my life, being an active participant in my life. Literally, when I made that decision, everything shifted.
So much of a woman's happiness in her life has nothing to do with anything but the relationship with herself.
To see my beloved friend say yes to support allowed me to be able to leave knowing that my short time there hopefully encoded some kind of level of support for her daughter, and knowing that she was in amazing hands with the community that she had built in person.
It's a really powerful thing to remind yourself that really the key to unlocking your next step is often held within the people that you're around. Welcome to the Womben Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Usha Anandi, and you're in the right place if you're looking to heal yourself as a woman, not just for you, but for all the women who came before you and all the women who will come after. Learn ancient practices, hear vulnerable stories that remind you you're not alone and you're definitely not crazy, and tap into the bravery that it takes to be an undomesticated woman in the world we live in today. Today, I'm joined by one of my best friends in the entire world, one of the women who has been building the Womben Wellness movement brick by brick with me for the last 6.5 years. And we talk about so much, from healing the sister wound to vulnerable confessions about moments in our life that made serious change, not just in our health, but in our life path, and what it really takes to build authentic community. Because if there's one thing that I've learned in the past 10 plus years of facilitating women's work, it's that one, it takes a lot to trust in women again, especially for those of us who have been betrayed, or even for those of us who have been the betrayer of another woman's trust. And it also tracks back to this feeling of being so alone as a woman in modern culture, not having the support that we need, not just to survive, but to thrive. So if you're an overachiever, someone who has been self-improving, who buys all the courses, who tries to meditate your way to awareness and to healing, this is probably a conversation that you need to listen to take some of the pressure off of yourself when it comes to healing, to stop self-improving and trying to fix your way and bring in some support and some self-energy to take those rocks out of your backpack and enjoy your life and experience deeper, more enriching, fulfilling relationships with women and people around you. Kristina Caltabiano is a sex, love, and relationships coach who has a master's in social work and public health. She has been on the Womben Wellness team since the very beginning when Camille and I brought this work online, and she has been there with me every step of the way. She facilitates Womb Circle inside of our Liberated womb, as well as facilitating our Womb Circle facilitator certification with me, sharing this work in the world, helping women become torchbearers of women's work so that they can go out into their community and share healing. This is one of my favorite conversations I've had thus far. One of my best friends, we go there, just two Leos Leoing together. I'm so excited for you to listen to it and implement what we share in your life to get more out of your relationships and to build the village that you know you need. Kristina, thank you so much for saying yes to coming on the Womben Wellness Podcast. Womben Wellness wouldn't be what it is without you, so it's such an honor to be here with you in person.
Oh my God, I can't believe I get to touch you, feel you, be with you. It is such a joy to get to witness the whole podcast unfolding and get to be part of your life.
Thank you so much. And, I can still remember the first night that I met you. So we were actually connected through my business partner, Camille, and she was prepping me. It's like her and I had just formed our partnership to bring my work online. And I was in northern Thailand in the jungle studying with one of my teachers, a hands-on method of lifting and tonifying the womb for postpartum. So I was in this like little hut that was on stilts so that it would be protected from the flood season there in northern Thailand. It was like pouring rain all around me. I'm so grateful that the internet worked because she was prepping me like, I've got just the girl who we're going to hire to be our first Womben Wellness team member. You've got to meet her. You're going to love her. And I got on the call, and I'll always describe this moment like you were a golden retriever. Like Kristina is just like pure golden retriever
Here I
energy.
am, all in gold.
Exactly. And I've always said like, that's what I want in a man, is like a golden retriever man who's just like always there, like, fetch me the ball, go do the thing, go. And you were there like so prepared for the interview. Like you had binged all of my videos, gone so deep into Womben Wellness, so deep into my work. And you were just referencing all of these different things. And I was like, who is this girl? First of all, I want to be around her because she's so magnetic. Second of all, I feel so seen in her presence. And third, like I know that she's going to help me expand to the next level that I have to be at to get where I want to go. And you were our first ever Womben Wellness team member, and your role has changed so much. You've gone in and out in the years, but I really feel so indebted to you. Like sitting here today, it's like we get those gifts of sisters that we are meant to walk the path with, that help us become the version of ourselves that we need to be. And you are one of those people for me. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, it's so funny to hear you share that story because on the other side of it, I was in middle of nowhere, Malawi, finishing my second round of Peace Corps. And I remember I wrote on a piece of paper, I just had a few months left, and I wrote down 3 different options that I was like, what am I going to do with my life? I had just finished my master's in public health and social work, and I was doing work on the ground with HIV and AIDS education for adolescent girls and young women. And I thought, do I want to keep working in the public health sector? That was one of the options, is like work in low resource countries and see what that could look like. Work for corporate America, helping to bring more social projects in. Or do I want to be a digital nomad? And I remember that Camille had contacted me. She had run women's circles in Rio, where I had lived for 2 years the year prior. And we just checked in, and she, your business partner, our mutual friend, also invited me to meet you. And yeah, I mean, at first I was like, what the hell? She has like 40,000 followers. She's so cool. And we got on, and the internet was janky, and my internet was janky, which is so fitting for the rest of our relationship. Yeah. And I was just in complete awe. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I need to say yes to this opportunity.
And it like continued on through that. So, you know, we started out Womben Wellness, bringing my work that I've been doing for years online. I did not know. Like, if you would have laid it out for me and been like, this is what it takes to bring it online, and it was all transparent, honestly, back then, I probably would have been like, hell no. But luckily, no one laid it out for me. All we did was like Camille and I just bought in, as did you. And it's like we started building this online movement from the ground up. I did not know how many blogs I would have to write, how many emails I would have to write. Like, oh my God, I feel like in those first years, I got a PhD in business. It was 80 hours a week more, like so much work. And you did literally every role in our business, from support to tech to like everything, manifesting generator, jack of all trades. And the first time we met together was when we were in India, right? And I remember that, you know, a lot of the women who start working for Womben Wellness, they like think that they are in touch with their bodies, and then they come in and start to learn some of the teachings that we share, and they go through this big awakening. And I know that you had one of your own. So we were in India together, and we did this magical ceremony right on the banks of the Ganga. Like, tell me about that, because that was about you and your body and your awakening.
Yeah. So I started working for Womben Wellness in June of 2019. And like I said, I had just finished my master's in public health. I was all about women getting to be able to decide when and how and if they want to have a family. And for me, a big part of my training was done through birth control, right? I had been on the pill since I was 17, switched to one IUD, switched to another IUD. And then I entered this world of womb healing and the phases of the menstrual cycle. And I thought, what the heck? I am missing out on this magical message from my body every month. And if you know me, you know I love my sleep. I like to take care of my body. I just felt like I was missing out on a vital sign to know how my body is actually doing. And so when we got to India, I had been, traveling in Southeast Africa before that, and then went over to India. We met for the first time, but we had already been working together heavily for 4 months at that point. And I thought, this is it. I don't really know where or how I'm going to get this IUD taken out, but I'm going to do it now. And so the part of the reason I was invited to India was because you were holding a prenatal yoga teacher training, which absolutely changed my life. Right after that, I went with a friend from that training to a local clinic, and I did horse lips as this wonderful Indian woman doctor just swiped the IUD out of my uterus, and just like that, my life changed.
And I remember we went down to the banks of the Ganga, like the Ganges River, and we buried your IUD in the ground.
Yes.
And it was like this huge ceremony of like you reclaiming your body. And I'm so glad you brought that up, because so many women learn that to be empowered means to be in control of your fertility. And I don't want to negate that birth control is so empowering for women in certain situations, right? And also, it is just that, birth control. We're controlling this natural cycle. And in Ayurveda, they say, you cannot suppress a natural cycle in the body without there being a consequence, an impact to your body down the line. And so I think it's interesting that so many women, myself included, I went on the pill when I was 15. And I learned, I'm taking care of myself. I'm being a feminist. I'm being empowered. Now I can have sex whenever I want with whoever I want to and not get pregnant, and I'll be fine. And then slowly but surely my health started to degrade. So going off the pill for me was a huge moment of awakening, of listening to the undomesticated woman, the cycle breaker, the kitchen witch, who was alive and well within me, but just waiting to be recognize, waiting for me to give her a voice. And that's really what about Liberated Womb is about. It's like that transformation from the inside out of listening to yourself, maybe even for the first time in your life, in the face of your master's degree in public health, in the face of all of this pressure, of all this different ideology of like, this is what it means to be empowered as a woman. And I remember when we buried your IUD in the ground, it was like this big clearing. It was really the start of a whole new path. So what was that like for you? Because so many women listening have been on hormonal birth control. It's so common to be prescribed them like from the time you and I were both teenagers. What was that like to start getting a natural cycle after years of being on some kind of hormonal contraception?
I think the first thing that comes to me is all the resistance I was met with by my closest friends at that time, who had also done a master's in public health or worked in this field for a while. And I remember, and we project our fear onto others. The fear that was projected onto me is, oh, haha, I wonder how long it will take until you get pregnant. And I remember thinking, you have no idea what it's going to look like or what this is actually, what's happening in your own body. And so I had to stay so sovereign and so grounded in my own decision and continue to celebrate every month that my period arrived. And so at first I couldn't wait to bleed. And I remember as soon as it came out, I bled for a couple days. And then it was maybe 33 or 34 days until I got my first full cycle. And it was just such a gift. I remember I was in Rishikesh at that time, and it was December, cold AF. And I was just in the shower, which was the only place I could get really, really warm, just crying from relief of, wow, this is what it feels like to bleed. This is what it feels like to be alive in my body and know that this seed of desire that I have to carry children in the future is alive, and that I'm able to, and that my body is healthy and well.
Yeah, it's such a, when we think about like the action of menstrual blood, it's like menstrual blood fills in the uterus and cleans it out, not just of physical debris, but of emotions and feelings. And I know for me, when I got off birth control, it was like years and years of things that I had not let go of were finally being released through my monthly cycle. And one of my teachers says, like, every 28 days, 29, 30 days, we as women get a new body. It's like a rebirth. But that's not why we're here. I'm like, we're going really deep into menstruation right now. Bring it back. We should bring it back. So you and I are on this path together, and we've built this movement together. And one of the things that comes up a lot when you're working with women is the sister wound. And I know we both have a unique experience of that. And so tell me, like, what is your experience? You grew up with brothers, and it's funny. We had a friend who's like, oh, do you have a sister? And it's like, no, the sister wound isn't just about like your blood sister. The sister wound is about being in competition, being jealous, being in conflict with other women, just as a way of existing in this world, as a survival mechanism. And so what is your experience of the sister wound, and how has it shown up for you in your life?
Yeah, I even just hearing you share that perspective, I'm getting flashbacks of memory in middle school and high school where I just love really hard, and I love showing up for my people. And I remember these flashbacks of there was some kind of friend maybe turning a back, and it always felt so confusing for me, whether it was over a boy or over loyalty to, the friend that liked the boy that liked me, and feeling so confused of why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? And seeing that play out and continuing to choose to come back and sometimes be with myself and cry to myself of why is this happening? And continuing to surround myself with women that are on the same level of cheering each other on, of knowing that we are stronger together. And over the years, I think especially having brothers, I always had this deep need for the feminine. I was always the emotional one in my family. I was always the one that left the soccer field when my brothers wanted to play outside, and I went in because I needed to go to the bathroom and then never came out. And I just craved that deep feminine connection of braiding each other's hair, getting dressed up, doing these, gender stereotypical things, but I didn't have someone to do it with. And so when I found that later in life in different forms, it wasn't putting on makeup with each other. It was sitting and having real, honest conversations about death, grief, having honest conversations about love and heartbreak, and having a lot of confusion and disorientation in a world that feels really hard sometimes with the human experience, and knowing that when we can support each other, that is so much stronger than going inwards, than hiding the real feelings that we have, because that's super isolating. I mean, we both know what that feels like. And I've had to do that over and over and over. And when I say do that over and over and over, I've had to build community over and over and over. I will share that I have chosen a different style of living since I started working with Womben Wellness. And well before that, I had already left my country of origin and left the US when I was 20 years old. And I have lived in many different countries with many different languages and people. And that has come with so much beauty and depth and so much isolation and fusion. Where is my place? Where do I belong? How can I make it work here? Will the visa work? Will I have friends? And when I think about where I am now that 15 years of living abroad in all different countries around the world, I'm now married, which is something that I never even knew if I wanted to do or not. I live full-time in Germany, a country that's very different than the places I've spent the last 15 years. People are much more inward. They're much more independent, hyper success focused, not so different from the US, which I left intentionally. And so I've had to come to this realization of if I want community, which I absolutely, it's at the core of me. It's one of my core values is community. I have to put myself out there. I have to be the first one to take that step.
I love that. And, just like going back on the sister wound, there's so much there that I want to cover. And this is such a big topic. Right now, I see so many things on Instagram like, do you have the sister wound? Like, oh, don't do this. It's the sister wound. And I'll just come right out and say, like, I have a sister wound. I totally have a sister wound. I always say that we teach what we need to learn, and we dedicate our lives to sharing what we really needed, what brought us healing on our path. And that's been all of the womb work for me and the women's work, because I grew up in a family where I was always kind of tracking with my father that there was another woman. And so I had this sensation that I was going to lose everything, and that it was because there was another woman there in the field. And I remember that really distinct feeling of being 8 years old and going through my dad's pockets and his like notebook and things from his work trips, and being sure that like there would be a phone number or a note or something in there. And I carried that hypervigilant part with me my whole life. Whether I was actually accurately responding to it or not, there was a feeling that there was always this chance of losing everything I had because of another woman. And so I had to look at that part of myself and get really honest about it. And it brought me into this story of the witch wound and this idea of course, there's a sister wound. For a lot of us, sister wounds are about survival. And if you think about it, like one of my teachers, Allison Armstrong, says that as women, we need to know that when we're with a male partner, that we're their favorite. That's really encoded in us. And it's like, great, you can think she's hot, you can think she's beautiful, you can be attracted, but am I your favorite? Right? I mean, you're a Leo too, girl, don't lie. And it's like, we need to know that, not for vanity, but for survival. Because in ancient times, and not even that ancient, like hundreds of years ago, when there were lovers or mistresses or kings and queens, it's like, if you weren't the favorite, you weren't going to get the resources, your offspring were not going to get protected, and you were not going to survive. And so that feeling of like, I need to be the favorite is very much embedded within our primal survival system as women. And yet, how do we kind of integrate that in our daily life, our modern world, where there's no longer kings and queens, and if we're in a faithful, monogamous relationship with someone trying to build deep intimacy, it's like, that's been something that I've really had to look at. And it makes sense that as women, we would see each other as competition, because this is what the church did when they tried to move goddess culture and earth-based worship out of the center, where women were the healers, women were the shamans, herbalists, undomesticated women, wise women, midwives, doulas. We were the ones channeling the healing powers of the earth. And so they replaced the mother goddess with God the Father. And along the way, they taught women that instead of fighting the establishment, we should fight each other. And of course it worked, because we had that survival instinct within us. And so I always like to name those layers as we're talking about the sister wound, because I know for me, especially being a women's work facilitator, sometimes when that primal animal response comes up in my body, which we cannot control, we cannot think our way out of those animal responses. It's literally survival. Sometimes those will come up for me, and then I'll feel layers of shame. And that's what I've noticed that a lot of kind of spiritual new age women do, is they're like, oh, don't say that. Let's sister wound or this or that, or just sister wound. Like, all women, no matter what they do, everything, it's perfect. Don't talk and hold your ground with her, because sister wound. Don't speak your truth, because sister wound. And we kind of use it as like the pendulum swinging other way, this blanket statement of like, no, everything is fine and we should never speak our truths. And if you have things arise, like, you're bad. And so I just said a lot there. But it's like, I'm wondering for you, because, you support me in Womb Circle Facilitator certification. We share that certification together. Do you notice this come up in your circles? Like, what do you track? Like, what do you see come up between women in your circles? Because for me, not only have I felt it come up for me, and it's kind of like edgy to be like, yeah, I have a sister wound, but I want to unshame that. That's what Womben Wellness is about. Do you track that in your circle? Is that sister wound playing out?
One of the things that you say often, Usha, is, especially in womb circle facilitator certification, is we don't need more Ushas in the world. We have you, right? Because so often we can look outside of ourselves to think we want to be like that person, or we want to do things just like her. Almost the opposite. It is still the sister wound because it's looking externally like they're doing it better, or they have it all figured out. And I bring that in, especially in our training, so much because often they want to do things just like the way that they've enjoyed doing it. And so when I think about how that plays out in the circles that I hold, the first thing that comes up is the layers of armor that are always present in the beginning, especially in an in-person circle. So I live in a very small town where all of the circles I facilitated, I am the only person they've ever had as a facilitator. And so the first time, it was everyone's first time. The second time, there were a few that came again for the second round, but then most of everyone, it was also their first time. So I noticed there's so much time spent de-armoring, really leaning into first the singing. Zero of them had ever sung before. And so that was such a healing practice. Being worried about how they sound, what they share. Is it too much? A lot of it, I hear the too muchness a lot. And can I trust this other person? I don't know them. Why would I share something so vulnerable, so tender in a space where I don't know anyone?
I love that. And, it all tracks back to survival. Like, I'm thinking about situations with women, and I'm sure if you're listening or watching, like, you've had experiences, Kristina, you named it like middle school, high school, those like treacherous days where we learn so much about ourselves and others, of being betrayed by other women. That secret that you told Sally, that then she told Susie, and then he told Joe. It's like, word gets around, and this feeling of safety and this rupture gets brought in again and again. And then also grieving the fact that when I think about history, I am also someone who has betrayed other women. I've been the one to tell Susie and Sally, etc. It's like, and bringing compassion in, because again, this tracks back to survival of like, I need to betray this other woman because the powers that be do not support me or her. And so if I'm going to get ahead of her, if I'm going to get preferential treatment, if I'm going to be the one who gets chosen, the one who doesn't get in trouble and burned at the stake as a witch, the one who survives, the one who the man likes, etc., then I need to pull one up on her. And so I want to bring compassion into this and just name that it's survival. And when it is survival, we don't always have the most control, because those are really young parts coming online, really primal parts of our system that kind of take over in a moment. And all we can do is bring compassion and self-energy and awareness to it. And I think that that's why circles are so powerful. Because yes, we all have a very deep imprint. And my teacher, Ray Castellino, Dr. Ray Castellino, love you, Ray, the late and great, he teaches about imprint versus blueprint. And so I always teach it like this. I have a piece of paper and I'll say, this paper is your blueprint. It's who you are. It's the wisdom encoded in your cells. It's right there in your DNA. It's always been there. It will always be there. It's like the original programming in a flower that tell it, this is when you should unfurl, right when the sun hits you like this in springtime. We have that in us too. But then we also have these really deep imprints. And it's like taking that piece of paper and making 100 little creases and folds. It changes us and it programs us differently. And that's what these programmings of patriarchy, of colonialism are. Like, we live in a world where not only the feminine is dying, but the earth is dying because we are one and the same. And so what we're doing in circles is we're revillaging. We're bringing that blueprint energy in. Like, I love what you talked about, growing up with brothers and wanting someone to braid your hair, wanting someone to brush your hair. And it's like, yeah, it's a gender stereotype, but it's also something that women would do in times where there wasn't war, wasn't famine. Like, who has time to brush their hair and bathe themselves with herbs when they're trying to survive? And I read an article recently about primping and putting on makeup and doing our hair. That's actually a way that we as women balance our nervous systems, because it's what we used to do together in village. And I remember I was drinking at a medicine ceremony when I was like 21. And I was there with one of my best friends, Sophia, and I just gotten my period. And I wasn't supposed to drink medicine on my period. It wasn't allowed. By the way, the reason it wasn't allowed was because they believe that a bleeding woman is more powerful than the shaman himself. She is so connected to the other realms that she is going to have more of a connection than the shaman who is facilitating and holding the entire space. So they told me I could drink if I went into this little corner, didn't make contact with the shaman. But in order to do that, I had to go through these special rituals. And I remember Sophia, she took these herbs and made a tea, and she poured them all over my hair and gave me a sweet bath, this herbal bath with all these herbs. And it was like that blueprint memory coming online. You know, those moments where it's like me and you on the banks of the Ganga burying your IUD. It's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Oh, I've spent my life being in competition with women, hating my cycle, not liking my body, thinking I'm weak. But oh, this is what it could be, being taken care of while I'm at this place, being loved and nurtured by another woman instead of fighting her.
It makes me think of that story, the first time that we were together just as friends, not for a retreat, not for a gathering, not for a work trip. We met in Barcelona, and you had your daughter with you, and we put her to bed, and she was all tucked in. And beforehand, I had already landed early, and Usha said to me, find me a bottle, not of wine. That's not our vibe. Find me a bottle of sesame oil, organic sesame oil. Here is the photo, Ali Natur, the one that's like in the shops in Barcelona. And we're going to oil ourselves tonight. So we got your daughter in bed, all tucked in, and we heated up the oil, and we closed the bathroom door rather, and laid out all of the towels. Ruined
this
all
like
of the towels.
Tiny Barcelona bathroom. So tiny, by the way.
Apartment. And we got fully naked, and we just oiled ourselves, oiled each other, did head massages, and just talked, just caught up. And that for me is that moment of, fuck yes, this is what I'm here for. This is the kind of intimacy that I have been craving in my life. At that time, I had been living in Ethiopia in a small village with my partner without any contact with other women. And my system was desperate for connection. Lucky for me, the connection that I do get with my female friends is like 10 out of 10 out of 10. And so I go from 0 to 100, and there's so much beauty in that. And there is a bitter sweetness. Do you remember that moment?
I remember that moment. It was so good. I'm like, we are kind of cool. Like, I kind of like us. And I feel that like the naming the bittersweetness, because, you know, this time you're coming to visit me here where I live, and I pick you up from the airport, and there's this immediate relaxation. And like everyone knows that feeling when you see one of your core people that you're like, I don't have to put anything on with this person. I can be my full self. They're going to love me. They're going to accept me. Anything hard that comes up in life, we're not going to be against each other. We're going to be with each other going through that thing together. And that's something that, especially as you get older, you know, for me, as I became a mom, like I had such a big kind of friendship cleansing where so many different relationships kind of ended in some strange ways. And it was this shift in myself. Like I am not the same woman that I was since becoming a mom. And you're one of the friendships that survived that transition. And it's like picking you up from the airport and feeling that immediate exhale. And, you know, my partner, I love him. He was like, everything's going to be fine, babe. Kristina's coming here soon. Everything's going to be fine. Your girl's going to be here soon. And I was like really premenstrual, like whatever, like it's not going to make that big of a difference. And it's like, no, it totally does. And when you feel that exhale, especially when you're picking up a friend who doesn't live where you are, and we're co-creating our lives separately, but together, thousands of miles apart in different languages, different countries, there's the immediate exhale and excitement and the feeling of being held. And then also the grief that comes after, because you know that this isn't regular life and that this is just like a special deep dive that is there and so palpable, but is also going to end. If you love this conversation with Kristina, then you are going to freak out inside of my new class, Liberated Woman, Stop Being Good and Start Being Free. In this 100% free 2-hour live event, I'm going to take you deep into what it means to stop abandoning yourself and start living life from your most magnetic, alive, and undomesticated place. Because if you're listening to this, I'm guessing you probably have lived in that good girl mold for most of your life. Like me, putting your head down and thinking you have to endure life. But the world doesn't need your good behavior. It needs you in your most magnetic, alive, and radiant state, freely and generously sharing your unique medicine with the world. That's what I'll teach you how to do inside of my free training, Liberated Woman. You can go into the show notes to reserve your space. This is only happening one time at the end of the year, and I am offering a 50% Founders Club discount for everyone who comes to this training, to my brand new course, Liberated Woman. I'll see you there. I'm so excited to join with you live on Thursday, December 4th.
Yeah, and we spoke about this a little bit yesterday of we move for a partner so easily, and I've moved multiple times to be with a person I'm in relationship with, in a romantic relationship with, and yet we don't do the same for friendship. And what is the grief that's there is so real, because I've really reckoned this. I love my husband so much, and he will never be my closest girlfriends. He will never be my Usha or my other really, really close friends. And I don't need him to be, right? I need to have those female friendships that see me, that reflect back to me, that understand what it's like to have a uterus and a body that moves and lives and breathes and experiences orgasm and pleasure and grief. And that's not his experience. And so I really feel that my life's richness, the depth that I have in my life, is in massive part to the women that I surround myself with. And in my case, so much of it is long distance friendships. So much of it is the week or the tour, the US tour that I'm on right now, where I get to see 7 of my closest women over the span of a month. I mean, I go a little hard.
I'm packing it in.
I go big or go home, but it's so nourishing to be around women.
And I feel that, so many women, myself included, when we have a partner, we give our partner everything. They're like the first person that we give to, especially if you're an Enneagram 2. It seems to be a thing. And then your female relationships can suffer because of that. And I think that we need to normalize the fact that, yes, your partner is so important. It's such an important decision, the partner that you choose in your life. But equally as important are the women who are surrounding you. And I really experienced that because I left the US when I was 19 years old. I went to Costa Rica and I started living in this like really alternative community on the Caribbean of Costa Rica. And I made some amazing friends. And we both lived abroad so much. It's like the friends you find when you're out of your home country, they very quickly become like family, because it's really survival. Like, we don't have our family here. We're in a different culture, a different language. So you roll deep, you lock in with each other. You really do. And I had such amazing community, people who showed up for me so much. And then I moved back. I didn't mean to move back. I thought I was just visiting my family for a few weeks. And I got back with my partner at the time to the US the day that everything shut down for COVID. And then a few months later, I unexpectedly found myself pregnant. And so I went through the biggest metamorphosis from going from maiden to mother entirely almost alone. And I don't say completely alone because I had my partner, I had my mom, my sister, my dad, my stepdad, and I'm so grateful for those layers that really did show up for me. But in contrast and comparison to what I had had before, which was a living, breathing, rich, biodiverse ecosystem of amazing women who were on my level, who got me, who I didn't have to explain myself to. It's like versus being at home. I'm like the dramatic one. I'm the rainbow sheep. I'm like the weird one who's trying to break cycles in my family and like point out things that maybe we need to bring healing to. And no one likes that. And so I found myself like really alone. And I remember I had my blessing ways. I went through my entire pregnancy. Like even my best friend here didn't want to touch me. Like she stayed 6 feet away from me. And it's like, I wanted to be touched by women so bad that I spent so much of my savings, like going to a chiropractor every week, going to get acupuncture. Like I joked that I paid women to be my friends, and I really did because I needed that. And so here I am going through a total ego annihilation and death. And I remember we had my blessing way online on Zoom, and I'm seeing all these faces of women. And I just like sobbed for like, what did I sob for like 15 minutes, like 20 minutes? Like it makes me want to cry just thinking about it, because sitting down and seeing all of your faces, I had been soldiering on like a good Irish girl, like, it's all good, just push it down, like you got it. There was no other choice. Like COVID was hard for all of us, and I just put it down. I pushed it down like a good Irish girl does. And as soon as I saw your faces, I could no longer ignore how absolutely heart-wrenching it was for me to go through an experience where the blueprint of pregnancy is like, you're in a village. You're surrounded by women who love you, who are massaging your feet, who are braiding your hair, who are bringing you food, like who are supporting you. And the imprint that I got in my system was, no one wants to touch you. You should be afraid to get sick from anyone around you. You should be afraid to go to the hospital because you can't even bring your family there. And you're in this alone. And that affected my birth. It affected my postpartum. And what it brought me to was like one of the core teachings that you and I share in the Womb Circle Facilitator certification, which is this idea of layers of support. And I wonder, like, before I go on into that, like, is there anything that comes up for you that you want to share?
Yeah, totally. I mean,
because you were there with me through that.
I remember, and we all have our own experience with COVID, just how desperately I wanted to be there with you, and how heartbreaking it was to know that we weren't allowed to be together. That this is a time when, especially your first child moving into this place of pregnancy, having supported so many other women as a doula, as a friend, as a womb keeper, and that you didn't have that. Right? And that grief as a friend is so big. And yes, the blessing way was beautiful, and you got, your bath and the massages. And at the same time, that rewriting, that programming is now encoded to some degree. And as you always say, it's never too late to heal. And I know how much work you've done over the past 5 years to rebuild all that was lost during that period of time, both energetically, physically, and the love and the support that you didn't have then. Every day I see you working towards that. Every day I see you working towards that. And your daughter really feels that. And she is so freaking loved and so funny.
She is. And it's like, it's interesting because, there's that cliche, like, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And when I think about what is missing for so many women when it comes to healing, and we have all different kinds of guests on this podcast, you're going to learn from herbalists, from like nutritionists, from Ayurvedic doctors, from somatic therapists, from like body workers, like the whole thing. And when I think about what women need, so many women feel so alone, feel like I need somewhere that I can just be myself. I need a place where I know that someone else has got me and that I have a connection point that I can reach out to. And this is like the baseline for our human needs. And it's something that modern culture has totally walled us off to. That idea of you're good, you got it. Like just going alone, you got it. And so you and I teach in Womb Circle, which is pulled and inspired from my teacher, Dr. Ray Castellino, this idea of 2 layers of support, and how when a baby is conceived, and we were all conceived in some way, some of us in through without any reproductive technology. I actually personally was conceived via IVF. So I have a very interesting conception story. And whenever we're conceived and a spirit comes into this world, we have 2 layers that we connect to. If there's a twin, first, that connection is with the twin, which I also have some stories about that for another podcast. But if there is no twin, the first layer is the mother, and we connect to the energy of the mother's uterus, the receptivity of the mother's uterus. Were we wanted? Were we welcome? Was there trepidation? Was there things going on in the mother's life that were distracting them? I know for me, that's definitely a part of my conception story. And then after, we connect with the second layer, which is the father or the other partner or the grandmother or whoever else is supporting. And that is, I say, like both optimal and also bare minimum, that we going through our life have at least 2 layers of support. And whenever I teach this, like the same thing happens. I think this will be our 4th cohort of Womb Circle that comes up. And like, what happens every time I teach this? The same thing every single time.
Yeah, it happens both in the training and also in circles when we bring up layers of support. So what happens is there is an immense amount of grief. What happens if I don't have 2 layers of support? Can a tree be my layer of support? Can a pet be my layer of support? And there's this massive lack of having human connection that we can depend on and rely on. And that the takeaway in that we support our students with is find someone and tell them that they are your layer of support. That best friend that you have, that you rely on, does she know that? Can you call her and tell her like, hey, you're my layer of support and I'm here for you too. This is kind of what it looks like. I love you. I want to support you. I want to cheer you on. And I want to have that for myself too.
Yeah. And it's like people can get confused with that of like, what do you mean? Like, how am I going to contact them? And it's not even about actually making the connection so much as it is bolstering your system and kind of scaffolding the nervous system to know, okay, there is support on either side of me, so much so that if I wanted to collapse a little bit, I could. If I wanted to get activated a little bit, I could. If I want to expand or contract, I'm held here and contained here. And it can be as simple as like texting someone, like, I just want to know I'm not alone. You know, I have a therapist who I see every week. And sometimes even just knowing that if I could reach out, if I wanted to reach out to her, I could, that there is that option. That is like a layer of support for me. I don't do it, but I could if I wanted to. And that feels majorly supportive for me. So, you know, when I went through postpartum depression, I, like a good pitta, high achieving girl who's been trying to be good for my entire life because I thought I was broken because of Catholicism, I was like, you're going to double down. You're just going to try really hard. Like, you're going to fix this. You're a women's health practitioner. Like, you're like so well versed in all the things to do postpartum to heal yourself. So you're just going to make a schedule for yourself and you're just going to double down on it. And it's so funny because I recently saw this like postpartum thing that someone made, and it's like all these step-by-step things to do of like, okay, get up, drink this, do that. And it's like such an intense, like 8 a.m. you do this, 9 a.m. you do this, 10 a.m., etc. And I was that girl. I was like, I'm gonna achieve and hack my way to the best postpartum because I was in deep pits of despair. And after like 3 or 4 months of pushing myself to the brink of literal mental psychosis and what felt like physical, emotional, spiritual collapse, I realized actually right now, right here, this one isn't going to work. Like you cannot fix and self-improve and achieve to replace what community is supposed to do for you. Like that postpartum mom is not supposed to have alarms on her phone. Get up, do this, 9 a.m., do that, 10 a.m., do this. She's supposed to have a friend who comes in and wakes her up. She's supposed to have a partner who comes in and brings her food. She's supposed to have a grandmother, a mother-in-law who comes in and brings her lunch. She's supposed to have a neighbor who comes in and massages her feet. That is the optimal. That is the blueprint. And unfortunately, so many women today, it's like we think we're sick because we're not trying hard enough. And we are like in a garden being eaten by pests with no companion plants around to protect us. We're not in an ecosystem. We're standing alone in a field wondering why we're suffering, and we're blaming ourselves for it. And so what I think is really important for women listening is like, the sister wound is a product of the world that we've been living in. And yeah, it has to do with survival. Yeah, it can bring up some real shit. And that's why it's important to like know what your stories are so that you're not projecting them on the world. But this is all a product of us being severely, severely undersupported.
It's fascinating because I just spent the week with one of my closest friends who just had a baby 10 weeks ago. And she's also an Enneagram 2. And she was the friend who had such a hard time receiving. And watching her in motherhood has been the most healing thing, both for me to experience as a friend and as someone who loves her dearly and also wants to become a mother. What she did is so critical, and she started saying yes when people offered to support. I asked if I could come stay with her for a week to cook for her and to take care of the baby. Yes, please be there. We went on a walk down the street and we met a woman, an elderly woman on the street. And she said, do you have someone to help take care of the baby? Do you have help? And my friend said, oh, I have a nanny come 1 day a week just to hold the baby. But Mr. So-and-so down the street, he comes on Tuesdays at 1 just to hold the baby and just so I can do a few things. And she said, what time can I come? What day can I come? And to see my beloved friend say yes to support allowed me to be able to leave knowing that my short time there hopefully encoded some kind of level of support for her daughter, and knowing that she was in amazing hands with the community that she had built in person.
And that, like, you know, it reminds me of these physiologic initiations that we teach about inside of Womb Circle, like menarche, the onset of menstruation, like losing your virginity or exploring sex the first time. And we never lose our virginity, because the definition of virgin that I love so much is a woman whole unto herself. So we can always be that. But going through motherhood, birth, postpartum, menopause, it's like our physiology as women makes us rub up against our own liberation. And we have no choice other than to go through this deeply transformational process where maybe before your friend would have been like, no, I got it. I don't need help. But now motherhood is pushing her to this brink of like, I can crumble or I can evolve. And that's what women's physiology does. That's why I remember I was having a miscarriage last year right before I found out about my Lyme disease diagnosis. And I remember I was laying there in bed, just bleeding. And I was like, I don't ever need to take psychedelics ever again. I don't need to go to an ashram. I don't need to go deep into the jungle to drink medicine. Like, it is all happening right here. just having a womb, just being present in my body, that is accessing these altered states of consciousness. Like I could only explain having a miscarriage like being on psychedelics. It's a completely different way of being in my body and a different flavor and energy of life that I was experiencing. And so we can expand or we can crumble. And I really feel like one of the key components of which one happens, and that's not to say if we do crumble, there's not expansion on the other side. Sometimes you got to burn it all down to start again. But one of those key components is community. And so how do we build that? Like you have moved so many times, you have started over again and again. And one of the questions you and I always get is like, how do I build authentic community? And that's why we started Womb Circle, so that women can be those torchbearers for this kind of connection out in the world. But how did you do that in your real life?
I love the saying if you want a village, you have to be a good villager. And when I finally accepted after a year and a half of living in Germany that's where I'm going to be for the next while, I decided that I was going to be a good villager. I started reaching out to yoga studios to start teaching. I started reaching out to WhatsApp groups for foreigners to build a women's circle or a womb circle. And the pieces started falling into place. I was invited to teach a psychology class at the local university because someone had heard about me, that I was a native English speaker with a psychology background. Things just started falling into place. And when I was open to it and I put myself out there, it also helped that the weather got a lot better. So I stopped hibernating.
Like I can deal with this if there's sun.
Yeah. I stopped my period of mourning and hibernation and moved into taking control of my life, being an active participant in my life. And literally when I made that decision, everything shifted. And now 1 year after that point, nearly 1 year, it was actually January 1st that I said, okay, I live here now. I'm going to do something about this. I have an amazing group of friends. My husband and I have an incredible apartment. We had also been moving around quite a bit. And there is something about the root chakra, right? That sense of having your basic needs met, having that stability, having the home center really be built from a place of not one foot out the door. And when I work with couples and when I work with individuals around building that sense of safety and security, it all starts with your sense of self, your sense of who is around you supporting you. And when you can lean into that, the relationships in your life become so much more fruitful, stable, less like a roller coaster. And for me, my goal in life is to have that sense of peace, remove the stress, and be able to be as present as possible.
I love that. And there's a piece there that I want to pull out that you said of like, the shift came when you stopped running. And that's what working with us in Liberated Womb is about. It's like, stop running from yourself, stop running from your pain. You know, for me, it's like, whenever something uncomfortable would happen, whenever there was a relationship I wanted to exit, something with my family I wanted to escape, I would just run. When I was 16, it first started with just taking my car and driving wherever I wanted. So liberating. Then as I got older, it's like buying a plane ticket, literally leaving the country. And I even still sometimes have that imprint of like, it's getting really hard. I need to leave the US. And I mean, there are valid reasons for that, for sure. But there's something that happens. There's a maturation. There's a deepening. There's a settling, not just in your body, but in the entire field of like, how can the universe give you what you want if you're fickle, if you don't know? And if you're constantly saying, I want to be here, but actually I don't, how can the universe actually line anything up for you? Because you're not emitting that clear frequency out. And so I love that kind of settling that needs to happen that you named in your own system, so that the women that you were meant to call in actually could be called in. And that piece of being a villager, it's like, it's not sexy or cute to actually do the work in the muck to continue adult relationships, especially in our modern world where we go on our phones and we think that's being in connection. And yet we have to do that hard work of like, I have a group of friends I'm trying to get together, and where I live, it's so dry. And just according to Ayurveda, I feel like that keeps everyone like really far apart from each other. So nothing actually mixes. No one really coagulates because the dryness keeps us separated. So I'm in this group chat being like, I need friends. And I know you do too. So we have to lock it down. We have to get it together. And I think that a lot of people want just like the best friends, you know, like I want to find a Kristina, I want to find a Usha, like I want something like that. And yet we also need those people who we don't see all the time, who we just run into sometimes at the grocery store, and there's a smile and a cute interaction, or we wave at on the street. Like in a village, we have people that we're closer to, people who are a little bit more in the periphery, and then people who are in acquaintance. Not everyone has to be in your closest circle. And I think that a lot of people are holding out for that. And there's a balance there of like, yes, hold out for the great ones. And you and I were talking about that, like our standards for connection are so high. And also I've noticed for me, Aquarius rising, I like can't decide, do I like people or do I hate them and never want to see them again? And so sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be around anyone unless it's a fuck yes. And yet even people who are not 100% fuck yes, I can still get some co-regulation with when I see them at the grocery store. They don't have to be in my living room coming to visit me for 5 days, but I need to see them sometimes, you know, in order to be healthy and well.
Yeah. And I think for me, that resonates so much because some weeks, because I work online, my husband is the only person I see all week. And I will just call the few friends that I have, and I've really had to come to terms with, they don't have to be my Usha. They don't have to be, that takes time, that takes shared experience, that takes a whole nother level. And getting that in-person connection, hugging someone different, hearing about what's going on in their life, being able to share from a different perspective, it's invaluable. It's needed. And what I would tell anyone who's looking for ways to make more connection in person is it will come when you least expect it. And all it has to do is start with it will be vulnerable AF. It's super vulnerable to write in the WhatsApp group, I need friends. I'm going to be the one that's brave enough to start this. And then on the other side, I have found over and over that it's always met with a thank you so much for being the first one to put out this invitation. Thank you for opening your home to us to have this incredible circle. I didn't know that spaces like this exist. And that is what keeps me doing it every single month on the full moon, that we gather, that sometimes there's new faces, sometimes there's old faces that are becoming more familiar. And I don't need to see them outside of that monthly gathering. If I do, great, but we all have full lives. And that knowing that those spaces exist and that I as an individual can create them in my own community, in my own home, that I can contribute to them, that I'm helping these women bring into spaces that they literally didn't know exist, feels like, oh, is this part of my role as being the person that brings new people in, right? Totally different than maybe some of our retreat spaces where women are yoga teachers and womb circle facilitators and live and breathe this, which is also a total nother level.
It's such a vibe.
Most amazing thing. And we need those spaces everywhere.
We need it all. And it's like, you know, I really feel as you're talking, one of my teachers says that our shadow leads us to our dharma. It leads us to our purpose. And the shit that we went through is like, we went through that for a reason. And I hear this like new age saying sometimes of like, life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And then other times it's so hard. I'm like, what do they mean? But I really feel like I went through that riveting postpartum time. I had such an intense this versus that moment of this is what you can do and what your life looks like when you're supported. This is what it looks like when you're not. And I went through that insane transformation and death of self and loss of so much of me, like being annihilated into a million pieces and going through it largely alone so that I would know in a very dramatic way, because I'm quite dramatic, as you know. Life was like, girl, listen, this is the prayer. Bring spaces of village back, bring the hive back, like bring all these women together. And that's what Womb Circle certification is about. It's like, Kristina, you didn't have a community, so you were the brave enough one to start leading womb circles and create it. And sometimes we have to be the one who's messaging in the group chat, I don't have friends and I need them. Like, can we please get together? And so that's a really great lesson too, is putting yourself out there. Like, great, you say you want it. And how many things do we say we want in our lives, but we don't have any skin in the game? And it's like, that's what Liberated Womb is also about. Like, great, you say you want to be a kitchen witch, you want to be an undomesticated woman, you want to be a cyclical woman, like living in alignment with your cycle. But do you have skin in the game? You're just scrolling Instagram being like, oh, I'll save this post, I'll look at that later. Like, when do we ever actually look at it later? And getting into a community of women, and this is like really powerful group psychology, is if you want to get a certain result and transformation, surround yourself with people who have already done it or who are actively doing it. And you'll notice, like, one of my favorite sayings is we're the sum total of the 5 people we spend the most time around. And if you don't have a circle that's expanding you, I always say you don't have a circle, you have a cage. And so joining a group of community like Liberated Womb, coming in, working with your womb, liberating your femininity, or going and get certified with us in Womb Circle, it's like you're now in a funnel of people who are doing the thing and being the woman you want to be. And your body will just naturally up level and funnel into that version because it wants to survive. And how do we survive? We fit in. Just like you, when you join Womben Wellness and there's all these women living according to their cycle, and you're like, okay, I'm going to take out my IUD because these women are showing me that it's possible. And so that's really important too, is like, you want to be this next version of yourself, find people who are already that and spend time around them.
And that's what we're going to continue to do.
That's what we're going to do.
You're one of my 5 people, and I'm like the luckiest woman on earth.
So I want to, like, you know me, I'm going into the practicality, and we touched on the sister wound, but I want to give tips. Like, we just talked about community, but I want to give tips for women who have a sister wound. And what would you say for those women who are like, I want to come to circle, or I want more female friendships, but I've usually only hung out with men because some women betrayed me, or I'm scared to sit in circle with women. Like, what are some practical ways women can start to heal the sister wound within them?
I mean, the first thing that I would say is take it really slowly, that your nervous system is likely programmed to be on high alert, either around other women or in vulnerable spaces. And that's totally normal, right? For just to take it really, really slow and have so much love and compassion for yourself. And knowing that Brene Brown has a saying around vulnerability, that yes, being vulnerable can be really scary. And then it's that space of rejection and grief and having really difficult feelings. And on the other side, you can't have joy and love and belonging without vulnerability. And so while there's 2 different outcomes, both live in that same space of entering into vulnerability. Recently, I listened to a podcast with Brene Brown on the Diary of a CEO, and she said that joy is one of the most vulnerable emotions to feel because we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yes.
And so if you're scared to meet other women or to be in other spaces because on the other side of that might be joy, or you're constantly scanning for all the things to confirm your story is true, right? That women are evil, they're out to get you, they're fill in the blank, then your brain will continue to find evidence to make that true. And so constantly looking for ways that, wow, that woman just smiled at me in the street. Maybe there's something there. Or for me, I heard someone speaking English at a cafe in my little town where no one speaks English. And I did the brave thing of I just went up to her and I was like, hey, I think you're from the US. And I've literally never heard English in this town. And now we're friends.
Sometimes you got to be the one like, hi, you want to be friends with me? Those are great. And, you know, I think adding on to that, there's so much important work in finding out what your own stories are so that you can get clear on, like, you know, Carl Jung says, what we resist persists. And until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our lives and we'll call it fate. And if we're operating from these belief systems that we don't even have awareness of, we're just going to think this is reality. As you said, all women are evil. And if I think that, then I'm going to be filtering every single piece of information that I take in through that lens. It's going to color my entire experience. But if we make those internalized scripts, which usually were beliefs created for a reason to survive or make sense of really hard times, then not only can we bring some self-energy online, but we get to know our parts and our inner being more. It's like, I know that I have a sister wound because there was likely infidelity in my family and there was another woman's story. I am very familiar with what that sister wound is. I'm very familiar with how it comes up for me. And so because I know myself and I can turn towards those parts of me, which are actually just like really little parts that had so much fear and so much terror of like, am I going to lose my family? Am I going to lose my safety? Instead of projecting that on another woman, I can turn towards myself. And that's what Liberated Womb is about. It's about learning how to turn towards yourself, because the revolution doesn't start with changing that person and altering that person and making him change his behavior. The revolution starts within, and it starts with healing ourselves and bringing that self-energy online. So getting to know your own stories are so important so that you can actually orient what is reality and what might be mine. Because sometimes we do overreact and we catapult the past into the present moment, even if it's not accurate. And that's just showing us, like, I'll be in session with my therapist, bringing up something really hard, and she'll be like, and at the end of the day, it's just showing you where you need more healing. And I'm like, thank you so much. And I like joke to her and flip her off. I'm like, great, awesome. I need more healing. It's so fun to be a human and be alive. But it is a really beautiful, like, these hurts that come up from the past. Great. Well, here's another opportunity to heal. And that's also why I think women's work with women is so important, because men are not evil. We love men here at Womben Wellness. We love men. And also, in a patriarchal system, men have traditionally had more power. Are they affected and oppressed by patriarchy? Absolutely. But have they traditionally held more powerful roles, had more power influence, gotten to make more decisions, had more agency? Yes. And so I noticed that for me, a lot of sister wound stuff also comes up in presence of men, because there's a power dynamic there that triggers my sense of survival. It's like, if I want to survive, I need to be on the good side of the man, the church, the whatever it is, the law. It's like there's so many patriarchal systems that we as women have to navigate. And so I get this question a lot, like, well, can I bring my boyfriend to a retreat, or can I bring my man? And I'm like, no. Respectfully, no. Like,
well, I have to tell them no.
Yeah. You know, you don't tell them no. I'm like, Kristina, tell them no. Thank you very much. But it's like, I don't want that to be misconstrued of like, oh, no men allowed, women only. Because I know that, you know, a lot of women's spaces are like that, like fuck men, you know, and that's not what this is here. And also recognizing that sometimes the work we need to heal, the ruptures that we need to repair, have to be done in presence of women, women only, without that possible threat or power dynamic there, so that we can remember, oh yeah, this is what it's like to sit with a sister. This is what it's like to heal in circle with just women. This is what it's like to give to a woman, to receive from a woman. And I also get that question a lot, like, Usha, when will you start sharing men's work? Like, can you teach men? And I'm like, it's men's work to teach men. Like, just like women need to be with women, men need to go be with men. And then we can come together in our polarity and our energies and be together. And partnership, I mean, that's a whole other topic that's beautiful, that brings up so much. And so much of a woman's happiness in her life has nothing to do with anything but the relationship with herself. And that's something that not all of us are willing to admit, because it's way easier to put it on our partners, to put it on our jobs, to put it on anything else other than us. And it's like, it's our job to make ourselves fulfilled. And when we recognize that and claim that and realize we can find that fulfillment so much through our female relationships, women take care of me. That is an imprint I have. Like, women show up for me at some of the hardest junctures in my life. Women have been there, men too, but we need those spaces of women's healing without the threat, so that we can be there together, deepening into what it's like to be in the village, to be in the red tent, where we're all taking care of each other. And I want that not just for myself, but I want that imprint for my daughter.
And I would say that if you're thinking, oh, I don't know where to even start in my present life, join us in Liberated Womb. Join one of the retreats, join Womb Circle Facilitator certification. Because what I have seen from the incredible women in our community is that they also up-level. They come in and they say, wow, I didn't know this space existed. And everything else starts to ripple into the other areas of their life, to the point where they're then leading those spaces in their community. And that is the gift. That is the work.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, some women just exist as a permission slip. Like, I remember I was with my daughter's father. I was really unhappy. Our relationship was not doing well. And I read the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Oh my God, I love that book. I tell that book, like, every woman should read that book. And I read that book, and she's talking about like leaving her husband, who she has 3 kids with, and then falling in love with a woman, and just like this amazing story of liberating herself from all these belief systems. And I was reading that book at the beach, and I remember thinking, like, if she can do it, so can I. And that's what being around women, like Liberated Womb Circle, it's like, it's a permission slip. You don't even need the authority. You don't even need the how. Your nervous system, your deep psyche just needs the permission slip of like, yes, you can, because I did too. And that's a really powerful energy to be in relationship with. And something that I want all women to hear is like, sometimes you just need that person who's a few steps ahead. She's not all the way at the goal, but she's a few steps ahead, and she can say, come here. Oh, don't step right there. Cause that, you know, my feet felt through the mud there, and I like was stuck for a few hours. Come this way. I learned that this path is better. And it's a really powerful thing to remind yourself that really the key to unlocking your next step is often held within the people that you're around. Yeah. Kristina, thank you so much for coming on. As I knew it would be such a rich conversation. You can find us doing our thing in the Womben Wellness programs.
Come and hang out with us in Liberated Womb.
Thank you so much for being here and for this rich conversation, and for being one of my layers of support in my life. I love you. So much. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Womben Wellness Podcast. If this episode touched you in some way, it would mean so much if you could subscribe and download this episode. If you want to learn more about my work, you can go to womenwellness.com or come say hi on Instagram, send me a message, and tell me what you loved about the show.